All right, let's jump into this deep dive. And today we are taking a look at Instant Interviews by Jeffrey G. Allen. We're going to uncover some really interesting, maybe even some eyebrow-raising tactics for job hunting and interviewing. So get ready because Allen says ditch those online applications.
Oh, yeah, it's time to forget about those.
This is all about taking a proactive and seriously personality-driven approach.
One of the things that really struck me about this book is how Alan argues that your personality, what he calls persona,
Hmm.
it might actually be the biggest factor in getting a job, even more than your qualifications.
Whoa, really? So like more than your resume, more than your experience? That's kind of wild. I mean,
Yeah.
you always hear that saying, it's all about who you know, but this is like taking that idea even further, right?
Oh, absolutely. He even tells a story about working in HR, and his boss would literally just glance at candidates and be like, hire that one, just based on like a super quick impression. It's almost like a gut feeling. But Alan breaks down these gut feelings into three offer types. So you have your outgoing, your reserved, and your analytical. And each one has like these specific traits that can help you tailor your approach.
Okay, so it's not just about like being likable across the board. It's about understanding the person who's making the decision and how you can resonate with their personality type. Have you ever been in a situation where you got a job and you're just like, wow, I really clicked with that interviewer?
Oh, definitely. I think we've all had that experience where you just feel that instant connection with someone. And Alan's book actually provides a framework to understand like why those connections happen and how you can actually create them more consistently.
That's so interesting.
And this really emphasizes the importance of self-awareness, like understanding how you come across to others, especially in those first few seconds, is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of first impressions, Alan throws a real curveball when it comes to where you can actually find these instant interview opportunities. Forget stuffy office buildings. We're talking airports, upscale gyms,
Oh, yeah.
even the steam room.
Think about it this way. These are all places where people are generally more relaxed, more open to new experiences, and often in like a decision-making mindset,
Yeah.
It might seem unconventional, but it's about capitalizing on those moments when people are outside of their usual routines and potentially more receptive to fresh perspectives.
It's like catching them off guard in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. There's this hilarious story in the book about how the entire staff at Dodger Stadium was hired through these informal encounters, not formal applications.
Whoa, really?
This is so counterintuitive, but it really highlights how being proactive and going to where the people are
Yeah.
can pay off in these unexpected ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It challenges that traditional notion that you have to wait for the perfect job posting to appear online. Sometimes the best opportunities happen when you step outside of your comfort zone and you create your own luck.
I love that. And speaking of being proactive, Alan is a huge advocate for taking initiative, even when it seems a little, out there. He encourages job seekers to craft what he calls proactive proposals.
So it's about reframing your approach. Instead of simply applying for a job, you identify a specific problem that the company might be facing, and then you propose a solution. This shows that you understand their needs and that you're already thinking like a valuable asset to their team.
That's so smart. It's like you're already in the problem-solving mindset. He even talks about an indemnification strategy where you offer to work for free for a short period just to prove your worth.
Whoa, that's bold.
That's a bold move, but it really highlights Alan's emphasis on action and demonstrating your confidence.
It definitely is. It's like a high-risk, high-reward approach, but it can be incredibly effective, especially for people who are just starting out or maybe looking to switch careers. It's about taking ownership and showing your commitment to delivering those results.
But let's be real, even with all this talk of these unconventional tactics, relationships still matter in the job search.
Oh, absolutely. Alan actually dedicates a significant chunk of the book to maximizing your references, and he has some really interesting twists on the traditional approach. He stresses going beyond just listing names. He wants you to actively prepare your references.
Okay, so it's not just about who you know, it's about how well you prepare them to actually speak on your behalf. What does that involve?
So it means providing your references with tailored talking points, giving them specific examples that highlight your strengths. He even suggests highlighting what he calls positive liabilities, things like, maybe you're a workaholic. It's about reframing potential weaknesses as strengths that showcase your dedication and your work ethic.
I love that. It's like turning what could be perceived as a negative into a positive. He also talks about debriefing your references after interviews too, right?
Exactly. It's about treating your references like partners in your job search. You're actively seeking their feedback and their guidance throughout the process. He even shares a story about turning a negative reference into a positive one by actually confronting a former boss and addressing the issues head on. It's a reminder that taking ownership and communicating openly can sometimes shift perspectives in really unexpected ways.
That's a great point.
Mm.
Speaking of taking control, Alan introduces this fascinating concept that he calls interviewing instincts. He believes you can actually develop these instincts through active listening and awareness, not just in job interviews, but in your daily life.
It's like tuning into those subtle cues in human interaction, learning to read people and situations more effectively. He even suggests practicing things like meditation and self-hypnosis to quiet your conscious mind and tap into your intuition.
That's interesting. So it's almost like approaching the job search as a kind of mental game,
Yeah.
where you're constantly honing your awareness and perception. And he also provides a very specific framework for actually targeting your job search.
Yeah.
And it's called the Focus principle.
The focus principle stands for framing, objectifying, creating, unleashing, and starting. It's a really powerful combination of mindset and action.
So it's not just about like visualizing your dream job. It's about taking concrete steps to actually make it a reality.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into instant interviews. We've explored the power of persona, the importance of proactive strategies, and the surprising role of relationships in a job search that's anything but traditional.
Yeah, we've really only just scratched the surface. But hold on to your hats because in the next part, we're going to delve even deeper into Alan's unconventional tactics. From the specific locations he recommends for finding those instant interviews to the art of turning negative responses into actual opportunities. It's going to be a wild ride.
I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's do it. Welcome back. We're diving deeper into Jeffrey G. Allen's instant interviews and exploring some of the more unconventional, might even say audacious tactics he suggests for landing that dream job.
Yeah, Alan really encourages us to think outside the box when it comes to where we look for those opportunities. Forget about scouring those job boards and sending endless online applications. He wants you to get out there and engage with people in some pretty unexpected places.
Some of the places he recommends are definitely not your typical networking spots. We're talking airports, train stations, even upscale gyms. Like, what?
It might seem a little out there at first, but think about it. Airports, for example, are filled with people from all sorts of industries, and they're often in a transitional state. They're open to new experiences and potentially more receptive to those unexpected conversations.
And gyms, especially those upscale ones, that's where you might find those high-level decision makers who are looking to de-stress and unwind.
Right. In a relaxed setting like that, people are often more approachable and open to connecting on a personal level. Alan even goes so far as to suggest the steam room as a prime spot for instant interviews.
Okay, now that takes some guts.
It does. But he argues that the shared vulnerability of that environment can actually foster a deeper connection.
It's definitely not your typical networking advice, but there's a certain logic to it. And it plays into Alan's larger theme of stepping outside your comfort zone and creating your own opportunities.
He also suggests hotel lobbies during conferences as prime locations for instant interviews.
Oh yeah, good point.
Think about it. You've got a concentrated group of professionals who are away from their usual routines and potentially more open to new possibilities.
And if all else fails, he says, head to the office building lobbies and strike up a conversation with the security guards and parking attendants.
That's a great point. Those individuals often have a unique vantage point and can provide valuable insights into the inner workings of a company. They might even have the inside scoop on upcoming job openings that haven't even been posted yet.
It's like tapping into those unexpected sources of knowledge and building relationships with people at all levels of an organization. Smart.
Right. And then Alan also encourages job seekers to take a proactive approach by crafting what he calls proactive proposals.
We touched on that a bit earlier.
Yeah, it's about demonstrating your value and initiative right from the start. Instead of passively applying for a job, you identify a specific problem the company's facing and you propose a solution.
So you're not just saying, hey, hire me. You're saying, hey, I can help you with this.
Exactly. It shows that you've done your research, you understand their needs, and you're already thinking like a valuable asset to their team.
He even gives an example of someone identifying a company's need through their website and then pitching a solution through a phone call.
It's about taking action, even if it means going against the traditional approach. Alan argues that this kind of boldness can really set you apart from the crowd and make a lasting impression.
And for those who are really looking to make a splash, he suggests the indemnification strategy, which involves offering to work for free for a short period to prove your worth.
Whoa, that's a bold move.
It is. It's a high-risk, high-reward tactic, but it shows that you're confident in your abilities.
It's essentially saying, I'm so confident that I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is.
I mean, that's a big statement.
It is. Of course, this approach isn't for everyone, but it can be a game changer in certain situations.
Now, even with all this talk about unconventional tactics, Allen doesn't discount the importance of traditional networking and building relationships. In fact, he dedicates a significant portion of the book to maximizing both personal and professional references.
He emphasizes that references are more than just names on a list. They are your advocates, your champions, and he provides some really interesting strategies for making the most of those relationships.
So it's not just about asking someone to be a reference. It's about actively preparing them to speak on your behalf. What are some of the things he recommends?
Well, he suggests providing your references with tailored talking points, giving them specific examples that highlight your strengths, and even what he calls positive liabilities. For example, instead of saying you're a perfectionist, a reference could say, they're incredibly dedicated to delivering high quality work and exceeding expectations.
So it's about framing your experiences in a way that really resonates with potential employers.
Exactly. And he also stresses the importance of debriefing your references after interviews, gathering their feedback and insights. He wants you to treat your references as partners in your job search, actively seeking their input and guidance throughout the process.
It's about building those strong, mutually beneficial relationships.
Right. And he even tells a story about turning a negative reference into a positive one by actually confronting a former boss and addressing the issues head on. It's a reminder that even challenging situations can be turned around with open communication and a willingness to take ownership. Sometimes those difficult conversations can actually lead to the most positive outcomes.
Now, shifting gears a bit, Allen also introduces this fascinating concept he calls interviewing instincts. He believes these instincts can be developed and honed through active listening, awareness, and even practices like meditation and self-hypnosis.
Yeah, it's about becoming more attuned to the subtle cues in human interaction, learning to read people and situations more effectively. It's almost like developing a sixth sense for navigating the job search process.
That's a really interesting concept. It's like he's encouraging us to approach the job search as a kind of mental game where we're constantly honing our awareness and perception.
Exactly. And to help you focus your efforts and achieve your goals, he introduces this 5-step framework called the FOCUS principle, which stands for framing, objectifying, creating, unleashing, and starting.
So it's not just about visualizing your dream job. It's about taking concrete steps to actually make it a reality. Can you break down each of those steps for us?
Sure. Framing is about clearly defining your desired outcome. What kind of job are you looking for? What kind of company do you want to work for? What are your salary expectations? Objectifying involves creating a concrete representation of your goal, like writing it down or maybe creating a vision board. Creating is where you visualize yourself in that role, experiencing that success and feeling fulfilled. Unleashing is all about releasing any limiting beliefs or doubts that might be holding you back. And finally, starting is about taking that immediate action towards your goal, even if it's just a small step.
It's a powerful combination of mindset and action. And it ties into Allen's overall message of taking ownership of your job search and approaching it with confidence and enthusiasm. But we're not done yet. There's still more to uncover in Allen's unconventional playbook.
That's right. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore even more surprising strategies, from the art of turning negative responses into opportunities to the importance of finding a job that truly aligns with your values and passions.
Welcome back to our final deep dive into Jeffrey G. Allen's instant interviews. We've been exploring his unconventional, often audacious approach to job hunting. And in this last part, we're going to uncover even more surprising strategies, tips, and mindset shifts.
You know what really stands out to me about Allen's approach is his emphasis on resourcefulness, like tapping into those hidden networks that traditional job seekers often overlook.
That reminds me of a point he makes about leveraging postal centers for gathering job leads. I have to admit, when I first read that, I was like, wait, what?
It's not your typical advice, right?
Not at all.
But it makes sense when you consider that independent postal center owners, especially in business-heavy areas, they interact with a wide range of people, and they often hear about opportunities before they're publicly advertised.
So it's about building those relationships with those unexpected gatekeepers of information.
Exactly. Allen suggests becoming a regular at the postal center, getting to know the staff, maybe even paying for a mailbox up front to demonstrate your commitment.
Oh, interesting.
You never know, they might just become your personal tipsters, alerting you to those hidden gems that never make it to the job boards.
It's like turning your local postal center into your own personal job hunting intel hub.
Right.
That's brilliant. Now let's talk about references. Alan has some interesting insights on maximizing both personal and professional references.
Yeah, and it's interesting because he actually emphasizes personal references even more so than professional ones. People who can vouch for your character and work ethic.
Really? Why is that?
Well, with increasing limitations on what companies can disclose about former employees, personal references can provide those valuable insights into your personality, your soft skills,
Yeah.
your overall trustworthiness.
So it's about painting a more holistic picture of who you are as a person, not just as a set of skills on a resume.
Exactly.
He makes a good point. So how do you go about selecting the right personal references?
Well, Allen suggests choosing people who are successful in their own fields, who have strong communication skills, and who can speak confidently about your strengths and accomplishments.
And should they be people that you've known for a long time?
Ideally, yes. But the most important thing is that they can speak to your character and abilities. He also recommends providing them with like a detailed reference summary, including specific anecdotes that highlight your positive qualities and showcase how you've overcome challenges.
It's like giving your references a toolkit to effectively advocate for you.
Exactly. And don't forget to debrief them after interviews, gather their feedback and fine-tune your approach. Remember, your references are your partners in this journey.
Now, what about professional references?
Okay, so for professional references, it's pretty much the same idea. It's about choosing former supervisors and colleagues who can speak to your skills and experience.
Right, but should we be specific about which skills and which experience?
Yeah, Allen actually suggests carefully selecting references who can speak specifically to the skills and accomplishments that are most relevant to the jobs you're targeting.
Okay, so it's not just about listing anyone who's ever supervised you. It's about choosing references strategically.
And just like with personal references, prepare your professional references by providing them with a detailed reference summary and even sample interview questions they might be asked.
Yeah, that's a great point. It takes the guesswork out of it for them and ensures that they're giving the most relevant and impactful information. I love how Alan sprinkles in these little nuggets of wisdom that are both practical and memorable. Like, for example, he talks about turning potential weaknesses into strengths by framing them as positive liabilities.
Oh, yeah. Like instead of saying you're a perfectionist, a reference could say, they're incredibly dedicated to delivering high quality work and exceeding expectations.
It's a subtle shift in language,
Yeah,
but it can make a big difference in how you're perceived.
absolutely.
It's about owning your quirks and presenting them in a positive light. Now let's talk about the interview itself. Alan emphasizes the importance of developing your interviewing instincts.
Yeah, he believes these instincts involve active listening, heightened awareness, and even tapping into your intuition.
So it's almost like he's encouraging us to become human lie detectors. But in a good way, of course.
Exactly. It's about developing a heightened sense of awareness and using it to your advantage in the interview process.
Okay, and how do we develop these interviewing instincts?
Well, he suggests practicing mindfulness techniques such as meditation and self-hypnosis to help you become more attuned to subtle cues and better understand people's motivations and intentions.
That's fascinating. So we're really tapping into that deeper level.
And speaking of the interview, Alan also introduces a technique that can help you structure your responses effectively. It's called the STAR method.
I've heard of that one. It stands for situation, task, action, and result, right?
That's right. It's a way of framing your answers to interview questions in a way that showcases your skills and accomplishments.
So instead of just giving a general overview, you provide a specific example of a situation. You face the task, you are assigned the action you took, and the result you achieved.
Exactly.
It helps ground your answers in concrete examples and makes them more compelling and memorable. And it brings us back to Alan's overall message of action and initiative.
Absolutely. He doesn't want you to just talk about your skills. He wants you to demonstrate them through real-world examples.
And remember that 5-step framework we talked about earlier, the FOCS principle.
Yes, for targeting your job search.
Well, it applies to the interview process as well. By clearly framing your goals, visualizing success, releasing those limiting beliefs, and taking decisive action, you can approach the interview with confidence and clarity.
And I think that's a great point to wrap up on. Alan really encourages job seekers to approach the entire process with a sense of adventure, a willingness to experiment, and most importantly, a belief in themselves.
I love that. He reminds us that job hunting doesn't have to be a daunting, soul-crushing experience. It can be a journey of self-discovery, a chance to explore new possibilities, and ultimately a path to finding a career that truly aligns with your passions and values.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into instant interviews, We encourage you to take these unconventional strategies, adapt them to your own unique situation, and most importantly, go out there and make them your own. Remember, the job search is not a passive waiting game. It's an active pursuit of opportunity.
If you could instantly interview anywhere or with anyone, where would it be and why? What problem could you solve for them? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in your career.
See you next time.